Hey everybody, my name's Danelle Bolt, and I would like to do this video today to share my story with you because I get asked all the time how I ended up in a wheelchair. So 5.5 years ago, August 10th, 2014, I was camping with friends in Port Renfrew on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada, and we went to a bridge that everybody recreates on. 60 feet below, there's a beautiful river, super inviting, that we were jumping into. It was my first jump that day. I threw my flip-flops in, looked at my buddy beside me, counted to 1, 2, 3, go, and that is the jump that changed the course of my life for possibly the rest of my life. On impact of the water, I felt the break. I searched for the surface of the water. With one pump up, I felt the rush of the feeling leave with the coolness of the water from my chest out through my feet. Surfaced. Upon surfacing, I could hardly breathe. It was all I was focusing on. My buddy, who was beside me, who's completely fine, looked at me, asked, "Are you okay?" I said, "No." He says, "Is it bad?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "How can I help?" And that was the only conversation that we had before I got assistance to the shore. As soon as I got out of the water, I was on a very rocky river rock shore. The pain was excruciating. I had the guys pull the rocks out from in between my shoulder blades, which I felt like it was just a dagger stabbing me there. Finally, once that was done, we grabbed a massive blanket that I had down on the beach, and another one of the guys, a spectator, innocent bystander, and his family. This gentleman came over to help my two friends get me back up the river about 50 feet to a sandy patch where everything was flat, and it looked like, to me, a much more comfortable location to lie there and wait for any of the paramedics to arrive. At that point, we had to divide forces and send one of the guys back into town. A 20-minute drive. We were far away from cell phone service. I distinctively remember, "Make sure you tell them to call the air ambulance because I need to go to Vancouver. I can't go back to Victoria. There's no way I can last a 3-hour ambulance ride in this amount of pain to go to a hospital that I know that cannot help me." So he left. What I remember of the time lying in the 31 degrees Celsius heat, was trying to figure out what I had done to my insides and why it was so hard to breathe. So breathing in and breathing out and trying to stay cognitive while I waited for the ambulance to arrive. Once they did, we are in a very remote location. 20 minutes away from town, an hour away from cell service, 3 hours away from the nearest city hospital by driving, at a reasonable pace. And the paramedics that are at this clinic are the ones that are fresh out of school. They don't know what they're doing. This poor guy, this poor paramedic was woken up off the couch in his underwear. "She's hurt. You have to go. We have to go now. You have to grab the sat phone. She's not gonna make it." Bad news. I just found out the other day that he crashed the truck on the way back to get the paramedics. I don't know how that happened or what condition it was in afterwards. But anyways, paramedics arrive. Now I'm on a backboard and they're over top of me with a pen and a piece of paper asking me, "So, how do you spell your name?" Meanwhile, I'm trying to breathe and oxygenate myself. I can't focus on these people that are buzzing over top of me asking me questions when all my information is 60 feet back up the hill, go and get my wallet out of the truck. My healthcare card is in there, my address, all my personal information, stop asking me questions. These paramedics couldn't do anything for me. They put me on the backboard, they couldn't give me drugs, and we had to wait. We're waiting for BC Air Ambulance, and as they started to come close and start looking for me in the woods, I could hear the helicopter rotor. They searched for, God, I don't know, 15 minutes, half an hour to find me at the river location that I was at, and I was so thankful and fortunate that they could land the helicopter in the riverbed where I was, so I didn't need to be carried and hauled on this backboard back up the hill to a waiting ambulance or helicopter, what have you. Finally, these paramedics that come out of the helicopter are the top gun of the ambulance force in British Columbia. If I was to have anybody come, it's these men. At that point of their arrival, I was able to relinquish everything. I didn't have to pay attention to breathing. I didn't have to direct traffic anymore as the one that's, educated with my first aid, and I'm dealing with a couple buddies who are carpenters by trade. They don't know all of this stuff, and plus the stress of a traumatic situation where I am the one that these men are supposed to protect me, the girl. So everybody's a little off. The BC Air Ambulance arrives. They put me in the helicopter. God, in the middle of the woods in BC, try to find 6 sober men to carry a backboard with a person on a Sunday back across the beach to where the chopper sat. They had put me in the shade by the time the helicopter got there because I was overheating and couldn't handle being on the rocks anymore. So it was a length. Find 6 sober guys, get me in the helicopter, and I just, at that point, I blacked out. They gave me pain meds and I was done. I knew I was going to Vancouver. I had told the friends that were going back into town. They asked if they should call my mom and dad. Well, I'm in BC, my parents live in Alberta. There's nothing that they could do for me. I had him call an ex-boyfriend of mine who I knew was in Vancouver. He's part of the healthcare industry and field, and he could be there and actually help right away. So the next recollection or recalled memory I have is coming out onto the tarmac a little bit out of the helicopter and blacked out again inside. And then I remember my ex getting there and my personal trainer that I had at the time of my injury. They were together in Vancouver. They arrived at the hospital 15 minutes after I was dropped, being airlifted. And I trust him in the medical field. I gave up everything. He made the decisions. I couldn't understand the doctor. I wasn't understanding the nurses. I'm like on drugs and pain, and I have no idea what's going on. I just know that I cannot feel my lower half, and this is bad. So here's the thing. Any kid that grew up in the 90s that used to watch the ER, in the beginning, ER and the credits, they have this person lying on the stretcher, and you go down the hallway and you see all these lights and all these doctors and nurses, and they're all yelling at you, and it's all chaotic and crazy, and it's exactly what it's like in real life. That's the last memory I have before going into the surgical room, was telling the doctor to listen to my ex because he's making all the decisions. I remember looking to the side of me as I was wheeled down the hall into the operating room, past the gentleman that I think was supposed to be in the operating room. Like, I don't know what to, my heart still hurts for that man because I took his space. I was the younger, better, I had a better chance of getting recovery, and the quicker I'm in, it's just the way the system works. I got filed in front of this person, and I will never ever forget the look on his face as I went past him to take his surgical table and his doctor away from him on a Sunday evening. But 7.5 hours after I broke my back, I was under the knife in the operating table, and 4 hours after that, I was out in post-op. So within 12 hours, I was broken and pinned back together and recovering. which in any healthcare system is astonishing how quick that happened. And I am so grateful that I was in Vancouver underneath the care of the Rick Hansen Institute, which is where they do all the spinal cord injury research. And I had one of the top doctors in Western Canada. I would go as far to say probably all of Canada and the world. That was my surgeon. And then I wake up in post-op and it's time to start recovery.